Hey, folks, it is Essential Monday. Welcome to the Teetime 42 podcast, where we have your hosts, Josh and Daryl, on the podcast that talks about things and stuff.
Stuff and things to be more specific
Oh, gosh, I swear, Daryl, every single time,
every time. It's part of the intro now. I can't get rid of it.
Okay, fair enough, fair enough. So, real quick, guys, if you like us and you like what we're doing, consider hitting the subscribe button just below the video. We need you in order for us to progress on YouTube. So if you like the content, hit the thumbs up. If you didn't like it, give us a thumbs down. That's our way to know what you like. Leave a comment below if you want to say hi or have anything else to add. We'll read and respond to all of them. So to get us started today, we're going to be talking about COVID-19 and the effects on the economy. So when I first thought
Mm.
about this, I kind of you hear about people like not able to go to work, the stay-at-home orders, and then the impact that that's having on those families financially. But in addition to that, all the product that's not being made because those people are not able to go to work. And in addition to that, the lack of income means they have that we all have less money to spend. And so we're holding on to our money. Maybe there's like panic selling of stocks, and so the stock market crashes, and then that's going to affect people's income if they're in retirement or if they're planning on retirement soon. And so I think it's all like it impacts us all from multiple angles, depending on where you are in your life, no matter how essential or non-essential you are and whether or not you have a job or not, it's going to impact you. So I just kind of want to talk about that a little bit. What are your initial thoughts on that, Daryl?
As you say, some of these things, I think of people I know that have been affected, like their retirement has been affected, people that have panic sold stocks. But also, I know people that feel like now is the time to buy stocks. And, you wonder who's right and how this will affect the economy in the future. What are we looking forward to?
Yeah, exactly. It's a bit unknown, and I think like for people that have never lived through any sort of like economy crash, it's all very new to us. And I think for the most part, a lot of us are leaning on our elders to kind of seek any guidance in that, and just hoping our government knows what to do and in terms of what's best for all of us in the end.
That's a good point, Josh. I didn't think about the fact that, and I don't know why I didn't think about this, but the fact that it'd be smart to look back at other economic declines that we've had and how things looked after and how we improved the economy after that, and, such as like the Depression and then the more recent recession. Kind of like everybody's looking back at the Spanish flu to kind of see how the pandemic itself will progress and things that we could improve upon. It seems like we could look back at these economic trials of the past and learn from things we did well and things we did not do well.
Yeah, and one thing that I always learned in the multiple boring history classes that I was forced to take, which now looking back, I'm thankful, um, is that if you don't learn from history, it repeats itself. But I think
So
there
true.
there are like good things to take from history and what was done in the past. But so we'll kind of start off with just like setting the foundation. What is going on in regards to COVID? So as of April 16, which is quite a bit back from now, but it's my resource, hub.jhu.edu. I'll have it linked in the description below. At that point, there was over 2.1 million people that were tested positive for COVID, and there was over 140,000 deaths. And that was like in the beginning when USA was becoming involved and starting to see high numbers. And then USA slowly trended into the spotlight for COVID in terms of infection spread. At that point, as of again April 16th, 2020, the USA saw 650,000 positive cases of COVID, and 22 million people were filed for unemployment. There was a stimulus package released, but there were technical glitches, and that prevented millions of people from receiving their stimulus package, which they, at that point, desperately needed. Um, I've heard some whispers about trying, like, in terms of like looking back at history and trying to learn from that. There was communication or memory of comparing it to the Great Depression of 1930. But then there's some economists, experts that say it's not really comparable.
Oh,
Yeah, which surprised me because it seemed like it would be, but their reasoning behind that was because the Great Depression was more or less a demand shock, um, not a production shock. So to me, I mean, I'm not an expert at the economy by any mean, or like how people respond to various events, but I guess that was their toll. Does that surprise you at all?
it surprises me, but it makes sense if you think about it. I think the depression, it started because of a whole different cause. It's been a while since I've taken a history course, but wasn't there a lot? There were a lot of issues with people investing into things, but so there was a big bubble of money and investments, but people didn't actually. There wasn't enough money to back that up. Kind of with the depression. I'm not sure if that's completely correct.
Um,
Um,
yeah, that would make sense because some of what I was reading is like, so the banks have a lot of bonds, in terms of like borrowers and investors and stuff like that. So if you have a bond that is documented to be worth like $1,000, let's just say, like, just low numbers so it's easier math, it's worth $1,000, right? Um, well, the bank then takes that money because you signed on for a bond for like 10 years or whatever. The bank takes that money, and then while giving you, let's just say 5% interest, they're trying to reinvest that $1,000 into something else to make more than 5% interest. So then that way they can still make money, but all the while you're making money as well. But that money's locked down. So when there's a panic, like, claim where people are now taking all the money out of the bank, so I trade in my bond
excuse me.
for that $1,000, right? Um, Now the bank, it doesn't have that $1,000 to make money anymore, and based on their prior commitments, they may not have the money to back up, or pay for that bond if multiple millions of people are trying to take all that money out at the same time.
Oof.
So we're not really seeing that, right now. More or less, what we're seeing is just people not able to make money, people not able to go to work, and as a result of that, we're seeing a decline in multiple things that maybe they normally would have bought. And that has a trickle down effect to the people that own those organizations or those businesses that sell that product. And so, based off their projections, maybe they were planning on selling 1,000 shirts that year. But because people aren't going out and buying shirts, there's actually a surplus of supply, which causes the price of that item to drop because they want to get rid of that item so they don't have a surplus. And so people are buying the same amount of stuff based off supply and demand for a cheaper price because there's not many people buying shirts, then the shirts are cheaper. And so people are buying the shirts, but the organization isn't making as much money as they originally would, which means they have less money to give to their employees, expand their business, pay for benefits. And so a lot of these businesses are laying people off, because of the decrease in demand. They're taking away benefits, like say like tuition reimbursement, or I think like they can't really take away insurance altogether, but they can buy like cheaper plans. Um, so what are your kind of thoughts around that?
Yeah, hearing about that or just thinking about that concept kind of makes your gut drop a little bit. Just thinking about how, um, the drop in ability of people's ability to purchase an item that people were planning on selling makes it so that item's price goes down based on supply and demand. And because of that, the organization that's selling it doesn't make as much money, and therefore the people working for it don't make as much money, and those people working for it are no longer as able to buy that product. So it seems like it could be kind of a vicious cycle, kind of depending on what product is being sold. So that's concerning. It
Yeah,
makes you wonder, how do we get out of that predicament?
yeah, it is. It's a vicious cycle. It seems like if businesses make less money, then they give out less money to their employees. Then the employees have less money to spend, which makes them hold on to it more, which just continues the decline. But
Yeah, that
has
must be why the stimulus package was thought to be necessary.
Yeah, I wonder how many people actually took their stimulus package and went out and bought things with it, or did they just hold on to that money in thoughts of like um, a scarier time, or maybe they had to use that money immediately to pay off some bills, get their water back on, or electricity, or pay their mortgage so they didn't lose their house. I'm wondering.
Yeah, and no matter what way it goes, if you save that money or if you spent that money, you can't really blame either situation, because if you're worried and you're saving for future times just in case you do get laid off, you do want to have that money saved up. But if you're spending it because you want to help the economy, then I mean that's justifiable too. It's just hard times where it seems like every option is the right option or as right as another option.
Yeah. So
Interesting.
I'm wondering, have has all this made you take like a step back and think again about any of your purchases?
Yes, it has. I was planning on doing some home renovations that I'm not sure if I want to do those home renovations now or not. I was going to redo my kitchen and put a fence, like a privacy fence in my yard, and just really make the house even nicer. And I don't know if I should do that now, because I kind of feel like maybe I should be holding on to any money that I have.
Yeah, because
What
I
about
mean,
you?
there's like various things that can come up in your life. So from like my perspective, I tend to look to the future and think like worst case scenario a little bit more. So, for instance, I'm thinking like, okay, what if my furnace goes out next week? Will I have the money that I need in order to support that repair? Um, or say like, do I have enough money that if I were required to stay at home and I wasn't able to go to work for like a, a week, that's a week's pay of that it just disappears. Do I have enough savings in order to support that sort of decline in income? So yeah, for me, very very cautious with my spending. I know that we've like tried to order food less. We haven't bought like new clothes. We haven't bought like any new furniture for our house or any sort of redecoration. No, all our upgrades are on hold. Like we wanted to replace our carpet and stuff, but there's no guarantee that that income that you have now is going to be there tomorrow. So it's a lot of it just is on hold now.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that's going kind of the saving route.
yeah. So according to usafacts.org, from March 19 to March 2020, There has been a decline in a lot of areas of sales, but then there's also an increase in areas as well. So I'm curious, can you hypothesize what you thought uh, actually benefited from COVID in terms of sales and what has suffered from COVID in terms of sales?
One thing you think would really benefit from this in terms of sales would be the PPE because the demand for that has skyrocketed. Not only are healthcare professionals using that now, but you see people all over using masks and even gloves, whether you should be using gloves or not. I know there's a lot of talk about that. But airlines, that sounds like airlines have been hurt pretty badly by this. And then I question if cruise ships have been as well. You'd think that they would have been, but I hear that people are still going on cruises. So I don't know.
Oh gosh, that seems odd. I wouldn't touch a cruise with like I would never even consider going on a cruise right now, being stuck in close quarters with a bunch of people, nowhere to escape.
I feel kind of bad saying it, but my idea or my desire to go on a cruise in the near future is definitely not. Or I don't have any desire to do that because of everything you hear about people getting stuck on cruise ships in the middle of the ocean.
Oh yeah,
But
and like
yeah,
refusal
I don't
to
want them to go
dock
out
and
of
stuff.
business either.
Yeah,
But
yeah, I don't want them to go out of business either, but at the same time, I don't necessarily want to put my life at risk just to
exactly.
support their business. So,
Yeah.
yeah, that's interesting. What do you think has, other than PPE, what do you think has benefited?
I feel like maybe food delivery, like Grubhub. Uh, I can't really remember. Postmates, I think, is another one. I never use food delivery, um, just because there's so many
Services, yeah,
options nearby. Yeah.
yeah.
I wonder what other things have benefited though. I can't really think of a lot else that would benefit from this.
Yeah, so luckily this resource had a list of things, so we could just kind of go through it and then you give me your perspective and we'll share our perspectives on like why we theorize that that may be the case. So one of the first things on the list was the motor vehicle parts, and the sale of that has declined by 25.6%.
Wow. Wouldn't have thought of that. Is that the highest decline?
No.
Okay. Just wanted to check. I didn't know if it went in order. That because that actually is pretty surprising to me.
Yeah, there's no particular order in this list here. So it doesn't necessarily surprise me a whole bunch, mainly because those businesses were not able to make cars during that time. And so if they're not making cars, then they don't need excess parts. And that kind of has a trickle down effect to the factories that were in business to make those parts and those die companies. And so I guess that doesn't necessarily surprise me a whole ton.
That
Um,
does make sense. I didn't think about the new cars. I was thinking about people like buying parts and stuff and working on their own cars because people have been doing so many like projects they've been putting off for a while because they have nothing else to do. So but that makes sense. I didn't think about the fact that new cars haven't been able to be made for a while.
yeah, I'm sure we're seeing more people figuring out how to work on their own cars, and so those parts are probably still being bought. Um, but I wouldn't imagine that that's a large portion of these companies' sales. I think
Yeah,
probably the
nothing near the
yeah
production of new cars, probably.
yeah. Um, in addition to that, I mean, people are just more reluctant to take out loans right now. Um, just because of the fear of not being able to pay for that loan in a month's time or something like that. Who knows what's going to happen?
Yeah.
I know I was considering looking into a new vehicle before all of this started. I wanted to sell my old one and kind of upgrade to a newer one that maybe is more reliable, has a little bit less work to do on it, that sort of thing, just out of convenience sake. But now with all this stuff going on, I'd rather just keep what I have now and just work on that.
Yeah, hold
Um,
out for a bit.
Go ahead.
Oh, nothing. I was just saying hold out for a bit on buying a new vehicle, right?
Yeah, I mean, unless it's absolutely necessary, you know.
Yeah.
Another thing that was saw a major hit is the clothing industry saw a decline of 50.5% sales. So that is the highest decline on the list right now is just clothing.
Wow. And you can see that a lot of clothing people will, a lot of people like to buy it in person, go to the local mall or different clothing stores to buy your clothing. And man, that has to have taken a hit.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah, you can't try it on in the store. I mean, how do you know if it's going to fit? Especially because from one company to the next, a medium is not always a medium.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's a good point. I didn't think about that. I just kind of thought of like, in terms of prioritizing your needs, clothing probably falls down on the list, and people are just like, I can go another year with these pants. Like, I don't need to.
Yeah, very
Wow.
true. And I'm sure that has an effect too.
So, the next incline, next business that actually profited from this is grocery. Saw an increase of 27% sales.
An increase?
An increase.
Oh, yeah, duh. There's been a lot of hoarding going on, it sounds, and people are buying everything they can.
Oh yeah. Hoarding, I'm sure, has a large part of it. But in addition to that, you got to think like people are becoming more self sufficient, right? Because it's
Yep,
cheaper.
yep,
So instead of ordering food from like a restaurant or something, then you are going to just buy it from the store and make it yourself. Whereas
yeah,
those restaurants and stuff, they're probably not buying the grocery like they normally would, because the sales are not there to support it.
yeah.
So,
Yeah, that makes sense. You hear a lot about people learning for the first time how to make things like banana bread and all different things. A lot of creativity going on out there, but it really has, it's interesting that it's increased grocery sales. Makes sense.
have you found yourself at all with grocery, like looking for cheaper options and maybe not splurging as much at the grocery store?
A little bit, especially because some prices are going up, like meat. Unfortunately, there's a shortage going on, and instead of shopping for cheaper things, we're just in general trying to find any meat really, and it's pretty hard to find. We're big on chicken, so that's not really available right now. But I was pretty cheap beforehand. We had it down to a science, so we already had our budget really,
Oh,
really
nice.
down. Yeah. How
Yeah,
about you?
it's funny. I heard a trend that kind of argued that there's not a necessarily meat or availability shortage. It's more or less the processing. So
Oh,
the livestock still being produced and it's available to be processed, but the businesses that are responsible for processing that meat are just either they're slower or they are just having less employees and pushing the processed meat out faster. So that might be contributing to the decline at the market. Like when you go there, you don't see meat on the shelves because it hasn't been processed yet.
it's the processing part. Okay.
Yeah, at
I
least that.
wondered about that. I thought to myself, it's not, I didn't think that all of our livestock had all of a sudden just disappeared. So
Right.
I wondered why we had such a shortage, and that totally makes sense. It doesn't just go from the farm to the store usually.
Yeah, you got to think
So,
like those livestock farmers, they're probably hurting because they're running out of space and then they have more animals to feed than they are used to because the processors are not buying it up and shipping it out. So, kind of an interesting perspective that I didn't think of before this.
yeah.
The next decline that we saw is in furniture. There's a decrease of 24.6% sales. which I mean kind of makes sense because people are saving their money for like essential items, and for a while there, it they had limited the purchase of furniture and stuff. So
Oh, really?
yeah, I just heard of like some states where you were not even able to buy furniture um, to decorate your homes.
That's weird. Was it just to shut down the furniture shops, or I wonder if that included like buying furniture online?
I don't know necessarily the theory behind why the furniture wasn't able to be bought up. Um, I think it was like to decrease the spread. Um, Maybe there was concern about buying furniture and having that furniture be contaminated, or trying to decrease the incentive for people to leave their homes and go buy furniture. I'm not sure.
Yeah. Huh.
Um, this one surprised me, more or less because with everybody being stuck at home, you're thinking, okay, what are they going to be doing at home? They're going to want to buy something to do, right? But
Yeah.
the electronic department saw a decrease in 15.9% in sales.
Oh, that is interesting. Did you buy any new electronic devices at the beginning to make sure that when you were stuck at home, you had something to do?
No, I didn't personally because I had everything I needed, but I know some people had been shopping around trying to find computers for their kids because their kids weren't able to go to school and they needed to do like
Oh yeah.
meetings, virtual meetings with their teachers and stuff like that. But as for our family, no, we didn't increase or decline our sales in electronics. So
We bought a Nintendo Switch.
did you? Yeah.
Got
See
in
it.
on the Animal Planet game, or not Animal Planet. Sorry, you can tell I'm not playing it. What is it? Animal Crossings.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah. I
you've heard of that?
I have heard of it. I've never played it myself, but yeah, I mean that's what I mean. Like I would theorize or hypothesize that people would buy more of these things like a Switch or some sort of console or maybe a computer or a new TV or something just to have something to do at home, but I guess not.
Interesting.
Um the this one doesn't necessarily surprise me, but the food and beverage saw a increase of 28%.
Wait, an increase?
Yeah, an increase.
So this food and beverage? Are we talking like restaurants, or what are we talking?
Um,
I wonder what
it
that
didn't
is.
specify um where it was being bought, but it's just in general food and beverages.
Interesting. One thing I've been trying to do each week to support local businesses is I've been trying to just get like a takeout meal at least once a week because originally I never really purchased any takeout food. So, yeah, just once a week at restaurants because I thought maybe they were hurting, but I wonder if this includes restaurants or if it primarily is like if restaurants are seeing an increase. I wonder if that's because a lot of people are just eating out or ordering out.
Yeah, I know that it's definitely a lot more convenient to have your food delivered to your door, especially right now
Yeah.
like what you said with all those delivery services.
Yeah.
In terms of beverages, I immediately think alcohol.
People are getting some beer,
Yeah.
some White Claws.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, they don't have anywhere to go or anything to do, so
Yeah.
I would imagine some people start drinking like around noon or maybe even as soon as they wake
Whew.
up. I don't know.
Oh my gosh, I sure hope not.
I
we
I've heard people say that that's
Oh no.
oh,
It's
just bored at home,
fun
I
every
guess.
once in a while, but yeah.
Bored in the
I guess
house
that's
and
one way
in the
to
house
keep
bored.
the boredom away. Yeah. Goodness.
um the next area is health and personal care. Kind of like what you were talking about with the PPE and like people buying vitamins, trying to stay healthy, and that saw an increase of 4.3% sales, which I would imagine it would have been a little bit higher with the concern over
Yeah.
health, but
You'd think it'd be a lot higher.
yeah, just 4.3% increase. Um,
Huh.
but then again, this is according to the resource, it's 2/3/20. So or March 2020. I'm not sure if it would have saw a spike later on, like if it ran
Yeah.
through like May, because I feel like that's when most people probably started getting bored with what they had at home and um, would be like investing in stay at home stuff.
Yeah.
Uh, the next thing that really surprised me is sporting and hobbies saw a decline in sales of 22.7%.
Oh my gosh, that's a hard hit.
Yeah, but wouldn't you think like people staying at home, they would be investing in sports and hobbies just because they don't have anything else to do at home?
There's so many things in that category, though. I
That's
wonder,
true.
like a lot of these sporting and hobby items you have to go purchase from a store. Like I don't know if you can buy ammunition online legally. I don't think that, like there's a lot of things like kayaks that you wouldn't want to buy online. So there's so much stuff in that category
Yeah,
that I
that's
guess
a
I'm
good point.
not as surprised, but at the same time, that's a huge hit.
Well, and two, like you think of all the equipment needed to play sports, you're not really going out and buying new cleats and new helmets and stuff like that if all the sporting events are canceled.
Yeah, very true. Hmm.
Um,
So,
I guess I mean that's our topic. We're at 31 minutes right now in terms of this video, so I just
oh
I just
yeah,
I just thought it was something that was interesting, when I bring it
very
up.
interesting. One more thing I want to talk about that I thought was interesting. We'll wrap it up really quick here, but did you hear about, I mean, been a huge decrease in people driving around, which has
Oh,
caused a huge
yeah.
decrease in the use of gasoline, which I mean, we've seen in the prices, probably I think around the country, are dropping of gas. But I guess there was a huge problem with storing. So the oil companies are still pumping oil out, and there's only a certain amount that they can store. So when they have too much in storage, the prices go lower so that they can sell that stuff faster. But during this time, during the pandemic, I guess there was so much oil available that they were having to like store it on boats, like specific emergency storage boats, and they were actually at one point having to pay the buyer to take oil away.
Yeah, I mean that makes sense. I mean,
Isn't that
I
crazy?
in terms of paying the buyer to take the oil away, that really surprised me. But like, I could see it
Right.
going down to like insanely low values to where it's not even profitable at that point. I can see that, but man, having to pay them to get it
Paying
away,
because they ran out of storage.
yeah, it makes sense. Wow.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Well, in terms
So
of like people consuming gas, it's not necessarily super cold outside, so people aren't running their heat. Maybe they're being more conscious of like trying to save money, so they're setting their temperature lower. And then obviously with all the stay-at-home orders and the social distancing, people aren't going out to the parks. They're not going out to the grocery store unless absolutely needed. They're not going to movie theaters to see movies. They're not going out to eat. The things that would normally consume gas and people would be doing, like visiting their cottages, that sort of thing, getting gas in their boats to go out and spend time on the lake. I know the landscaping and stuff like that. So you think of all those lawn mowers and those gas and that gas consumption. The schools were closed down, so the school buses aren't taking up that gas that they normally would be. So and city the I don't imagine the city transport would have been directly affected because that still runs, right? Unless they decreased the amount of buses that were driving around, but
yeah, I wonder how they did that because I know there was a recommendation not to use public transport. So I don't know if they had to shut public transport down or if it was just used very sparingly.
yeah, I mean, it would make sense. I mean, public transport, social distancing is almost impossible. So, but yeah, that's a very
Yeah.
interesting point that you brought up. But
Yeah.
I know I was happy to see gas prices go down.
Yeah, me too. I've been taking advantage of it, or not really, more than usual. But it's been kind of nice seeing that I can fill my big tank for $20.
Well, thanks everybody for tuning in for this podcast. Tune in again on Monday for our non essential topic. And then, Daryl, you have our outro?
Yes, I do. All right, folks. Well, that's all we've got to talk about for today. If you like our content, please mash and bash that subscribe button. If you have any suggestions, comments, or things that you'd like us to cover, please leave a comment below. Thank you all for listening. This is Josh and Daryl signing off. Until next time, amigos.